Yashoda Nandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we'll still need a few more things. If we can bring the mic and put this on the screen, that'd be great. Are you able to do that, Prabhu? Yeah. It's there on the thing. It's up there. Okay, so we'll start Canto 3, Chapter 24. And today we'll be studying chapter, text number 47. And this is the last verse. If anybody can confirm, we may have missed text number 45 and 44. I'm not sure if we actually read those purports. Can anybody else confirm? Okay, so let us... Well, yesterday we did text 46, so that's why... Anyway, so if somebody can confirm online, then that'd be nice. Otherwise, we'll start with 47.
Does anybody? Oh, somebody said we missed 45.
45. So let us start with 45. Vasudeve Bhagavati Sarvagye Pratyak Atmani Parena Bhakti Bhavena Labdha Atma Mukta Bandhanaha Vasudeve Bhagavati Sarvagye Pratyagatmani Parena Bhakti Bhavena Labdhatma Mukta Bandhanaha Vasudeve Bhagavati Sarvagye Pratyagatmani Parena Bhakti Bhavena Labdhatma Mukta Bandhanaha Vasudeve Bhagavate Sarvagye Pratyagatmane Parena Bhakti Bhavena Labdhatma Mukta Bandhana
Vasudeve Bhagavati Vasudeve Bhagavati Vasudeve Bhagavati.
One second, Gurudev. Sorry. Okay, you can go ahead, Gurudev.
Vasudeve Bhagavati
Vasudeve Bhagavati
Sarvagye Pratyagatmani Parena Bhakti Bhavena
Parena Bhakti Bhavena
Abdhatma Mukta Bandhana
Labdhatma Mukta Bandhana
Vasudeve Bhagavati
Vasudeve Bhagavati
Sarvagye Pratyagatmani
Sarvagye Pratyagatmani
Harena Bhakti Bhavena
Parena Bhakti Bhavena
Labdhatma Mukta Bandhana
Labdhatma Mukta Bandhana
Vasudeva Bhagavati
Vasudeva Bhagavati
Sarvagne Pratyag Atmani
Sarvagye Pratyagatmani
Harena Bhakti Bhavena
Parena Bhakti Bhavena
Labda Bhakta Mukta Padhana
Labdhatma Mukta Bandhana Vasudeva Bhagavati
Vasudeva Bhagavati
Sarvagye Pratyagatmani
Sarvagye Pratyatmani
Parena Bhakti Bhavena
Harena Bhakti Bhavena
Labdhatma Mukta Bandhana
Labdhatma Mukta Bandhana.
Vasudeva Bhagavati Sarvagye Pratyagatmani
Parena Bhakti
Parena Bhakti Bhavena
Labdhatma Mukta Bandhana
Labdhatma Mukta Bandhana. Okay, Okay, rather study. Vasudeve Bhagavati
के प्रत्यगात्मनि
Sarvanye Pratyagatmani
हरेण भक्तिभावेन
Harena Bhakti Bhavena
लब्धात्मा मुक्तबन्धनः
Labdhatmamukta Bandhana Sarvamangala
वासुदेवे भगवति
Vasudeve Bhagavati
सर्वज्ञे प्रत्यगात्मनि
Sarvagye Pratyagatmani
परेण भक्तिभावेन
Harena Bhakti Bhavena
लब्धात्मा मुक्तबन्धनः
Labdhatmamukta Bandhana Madhavashana
वासुदेवे भगवति
Vasudeve Bhagavati
सर्वज्ञे प्रत्यग आत्मनि परेण भक्तिभावेन
Bhakti Bhavena
लब्ध आत्मा मुक्तबन्धनः
Labdhatmamukta
Vasudeva
Vasudeve
to Vasudeva.
to Vasudeva
Bhagavati,
Bhagavati
the personality of Godhead.
personality of Godhead
Sarvajna,
Sarvagine
omniscient.
omniscient
Pratyak Atmani,
Pratyak Apni
the super soul within everyone.
super soul within everyone
Harena,
Parena
transcendental.
transcendental
Bhakti Bhavena,
Bhakti Bhavena
by devotional service.
devotional service
Labdha Atma,
Labdha Atma
being situated in himself.
being situated in himself
Mukta Bandhana,
Mukta Bandhana
liberated from material bondage.
liberated from material bondage.
Translation.
Huh? Oh.
Became liberated from conditioned life and became self-situated in transcendental devotional service to the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, the omniscient supersoul within everyone. Purport. When one engages in the transcendental devotional service of the Lord, one becomes aware that his constitutional position as an individual soul is to be eternally a servitor of the Supreme Lord, Vasudeva. Self-realization does not mean that because the Supreme Soul and the individual soul are both souls, they are equal in every respect. The individual soul is prone to be conditioned, and the Super Soul is never conditioned. When the conditioned soul realizes that he is subordinate to the Supreme Soul, his position is called Labdhatma, self-realization, or Mukta Bandhana, freedom from material contamination. Material contamination continues as long as one thinks that he is as good as the Supreme Lord or is equal with him. This condition is the last snare of Maya. Maya always influences the conditioned soul. Even after much meditation and speculation, if one continues to think himself one with the Supreme Lord, it is to be understood that he is still in the last snares of the spell of Maya. The word parena is very significant. Para means transcendental, untinged by material contamination. Full consciousness that one is an eternal servant of the Lord is called para bhakti. If one has any identification with material things and executes devotional service for attainment of some material gain, that is vidha bhakti, contaminated bhakti. One can actually become liberated by execution of para bhakti. Another word mentioned here is sarvajñe. The Supersoul sitting within the heart is all cognizant. He knows. I may forget my past activities due to the change of body, but because the Supreme Lord is Paramatma, as Paramatma is sitting within me, He knows everything. Therefore, the result of my past karma or past activities is awarded to me. I may forget, but He awards me suffering or enjoyment for the misdeeds or good deeds in my past life. One should not think that he is freed from reaction because he has forgotten the actions of his past life. Reactions will take place, and what kind of reactions there will be is judged by the Supersoul, the witness. So this verse speaks about purity of bhakti at different levels. We heard about para bhakti, which is freedom from false identification with matter and purity of intent while performing bhakti yoga. We know that if our bhakti yoga is ahaituki apratyata, that means without any material motive, whether that be gross or subtle, whether that be karma or jnana, speculative knowledge or animal knowledge. Prabhupada, in one of his lectures, he told that nowadays everybody is being trained in animal knowledge. I thought that phrase, animal knowledge. What is that animal knowledge? That animal knowledge is eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And Prabhupada would oftentimes stress to large crowds this, especially in India, this point, because at the time India was getting a little bit overly excited to adopt the so-called industrial and technological revolution, and many people were shifting their values in life from simple living and high thinking to this Western concept. And Prabhupada very strongly blasted the whole idea that we become more glorious by figuring out how to do the things that the animals do better. That concept is completely contrary to the Vedic conclusions and not recommended under any circumstances for human society. And we understand that Rishabhadev, he vehemently asked his sons, please do not get mixed up in the pleasure, the so-called pleasure that's available to the dogs and hogs. Instead, perform tapodivyam, perform transcendental activities with the aim of purifying your existence and take up to bhakti yoga. So this is the idea here that Kardama Muni was situated in this parena bhakti bhavana, transcendental devotional service. By his transcendental devotional service, he became Labdhatma Mukta Bandhana. And Prabhupada takes time in the purport to describe that these two words mean the position of self-realization and freedom from material contamination. Prabhupada describes in the purport that when the conditioned soul realizes that he is subordinate to the Supreme Soul, his position is called Labdhatma, self-realization, or Mukta Bandhana, freedom from material contamination. So yesterday in the Bhagavad Gita discussion, we are reading chapter 13, and the topic of the super soul and the individual soul is coming up, and Lord Krishna is describing that he is that super soul who is never conditioned, and we are the living entity within the body who is conditioned by matter. And through the process of devotional service and turning to the Supreme Soul and becoming dependent on the Supreme Soul, or rather declaring our dependence or being conscious of our dependence, this is what's being brought up here. When the conditioned soul realizes, there's no question of realizing something which is not a fact. So the word realize, realization, real, means reality, means becoming conscious of a fact. Right? So you can, when the soul realizes that he is subordinate to the Supreme Soul, under every circumstance he is subordinate to the Supreme Soul. There's many proofs of this, both logical and practical, or theoretical and practical, that God is there and we are subordinate to him, and the soul is there, right? And the soul is subordinate to the Supreme Soul. Many of the we can say the practical proofs, some of the practical proofs are that each one of us is not able to maintain our life within this body by our own means. I have to be supplied with air, with oxygen, with water, with food grains, with sun, with moon, with heat, with fire. None of these things I have the potency to create myself. So this is a practical proof that I'm not fully independent. I am dependent on grains. I am dependent on rains. And of course, in the Bhagavad Gita 3rd chapter, then Lord Krishna says that by performance of yajna, then one actually receives proper rains. And then from the rains, then we can actually get grains. And if all the living beings subsist on food grains. And Prabhupada often would stress this point also, that instead of getting all caught up in this animal knowledge, right? Thinking and making arrangements to zoom here and there faster and faster, right? So we can sleep more or sleep better or have sex better. All these things, we're actually forgetting about the grains. And there's so much vacant land every single place that you go. And Prabhupada would often say, I see vacant land everywhere. You're so puffed up, you think you can eat nuts and bolts? You think your technology will save you when you need to fill your belly? You know? And he said, all the problems of life will be solved if we simply do this. Just produce sufficient grains and distribute and be happy. Because really that's all there is on the material level to do. Every single person in this material world simply working to fulfill the belly. And they accept different means to do that, according to their psychophysical nature, their karma. And they take credit and they say, yes, I am a very great carpenter. And what is he doing? He's filling the belly and having some sex at night. And one person is a big businessman, says, yes, I am making the moves and I'm making the plays. I'm wheeling and dealing on the stock market. And I got this investment and I got that investment. And I'm going to make this supermarket over here and this hotel. And what is he doing? He's filling the belly according to his digestive fire, and he's having sex, he's going to bed. And Prabhupada would often say, these fools and rascals, they do not understand pleasure is the same as the dog. He's also filling his belly. He said that pleasure is exactly the same. And yesterday we heard, 2 days ago, we heard about a story that Prabhupada told about Gopal and the king. So I guess Gopal was an assistant to the king, and the king's son was, the king just had a child, and he was very euphoric about it. And he said, Gopal, on this amazing occasion of my son being born, how are you feeling now? And he said, I am feeling very happy because I have just passed stool. And the king said, my gosh, you're disgusting. How can you say such a thing? Obscene. You know, my son is born and this is what you say to me? And then it affected their relationship. You know, the king was offended for a long time that he would say such a thing, you know. And then at some point they were going down the river, and Gopal was ferrying the king down the river, and he had some urge for bowel movement, strong. Immediately said, Gopal, immediately go to the side. I must use the wash. You know, like this. Said, no, this is a jungle. You can't, there's criminals there. It's not a safe place. I don't want to drop you there. No, do it now. I cannot wait one moment. So then he goes, and then he does his business, and he comes back. And Gopal says, my dear king, at this time, how are you feeling? He said, I'm very happy. I've just passed stool. He said, see, this is exactly what I was feeling when your son was born and you criticized me. The whole point is that pleasure of passing stool properly, that's the same pleasure available to the dogs and hogs. And because I'm doing it in a white porcelain throne instead of a hole in the ground or on the street or in the grass, I think I'm a big man. And all my endeavors in technological advancement are very, very nice. But actually I'm just doing exactly the same thing in a more polished way. So this type of animal knowledge is does not lead, cultivation of this animal knowledge, one should not practice bhakti for the cultivation of sense gratification. And that is the point which is mentioned here. One has to come to para bhakti, which is when one, if one has any identification with material things and executes devotional service for attainment of some material gain, that is vidha bhakti, contaminated bhakti. So this is actually the point, is that in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd chapter, it's described, one should never practice devotional service for the cultivation of sense gratification. So it's the amazing thing about Srimad Bhagavatam is that it starts with pure bhakti. It says we kick out everything else that's this vidha bhakti. We kick it all out. Anything which is materially motivated, we kick it all out. right? And we focus just on the glorification of pure bhakti yoga and the attainment of pure bhakti yoga, the pure bhakti yogis, and the supreme transcendental Lord, which is worthy of worship at every moment. Everything else subordinate, we just kick it out. Of course, then there's another statement, which is that even if you do have impure motivations, worship Lord Krishna under any circumstance for the attainment of any goal, and you're sure to be successful. But one cannot seriously hear Srimad Bhagavatam from the pure devotees and not understand, that pure devotional service is the goal. Of course, if we maintain our material desires in spite of hearing so much about the glories of pure devotional service, about the glories of para-bhakti, then we're actually making an offense against the holy name of the Lord. And this one is actually, it does stump the devotees who are moving forward in devotional service, that we have to consciously pull the weeds. Means we have to consciously pray and surrender and execute our devotional service in full knowledge, right? We have to know that I'm not doing this for anything material, And at the beginning, one is offenseless because they don't know better. That's why when you hear somebody on the street chant Hare Krishna, it's very, very purifying for you. It's very, very purifying. Why? Because they don't chant with any offenses practically. They're chanting Nama Bhas, shadow of the name. That's higher than me. That's higher than my chanting. Why? Because I'm maintaining my material desires. Because I'm disobeying the spiritual master. Because I'm offending the devotees. Because I'm blaspheming, or I don't have faith in the Vedic literature. I think that this is some sort of karma kanda, and so on and so on and so on. But that person, he doesn't have any offenses. Therefore, amazing opportunity for us. Hey, try this out. Hare Krishna. Especially when they show some excitement. When you see they're a little excited, perfect person. Start with the mantra. Get them chanting. Then you can always go from there, Because if they chant the holy name, Lord Nityananda will deliver them. And you will be purified like anything to hear them chanting. Because they don't have any offenses. But if I maintain my material desires, and I hang on to them, even after hearing about the pure devotional service of Kardama Muni and so many saints and sages and so many instructions from Prabhupada, unfortunately, that's offensive. So we continue to hear the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam and pure devotional service, and this will destroy all the contamination almost to nil in our hearts. And we just continue availing ourselves of this good association, and we consciously direct our intention, our sankalpa, we're doing our devotional service just to please Krishna. Right? We're not on that level. We don't have that pure desire, right? But if we aim for that, consciously aim for that, right? Then we can get there by the Lord's grace, by the Lord's purification. So, these are some of the topics. Thank you very much for your patience. Would anybody like to add anything? Anybody online, Prabhu? No? Okay, Jagannath Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. My first question is why, we were talking about Sankalpa, so why, I was reading the Bhagavad Gita recently, and Prabhupada there was the word Sankalpa 2 times in one chapter, and Prabhupada translated that that word to mean material desires. So first of all, why does Prabhupada, why do, now, I'm ignorant, so I'm not trying to cast judgment on anybody right now at least, but why do some devotees in the movement talk about sankalpa when Prabhupada translated that word as material desire? And my second question, which I think is a little bit more personal, is like in personalism, if it's the last snare of Maya, then how come I alternate between impersonalism and karma yoga, and specifically, why do I make offenses when I'm thinking I'm God, and then why do I alternate between them if it's the last snare? If it's the last snare of Maya, why am I going back and forth, kind of thing?
Yeah, so as far as I understand, kama sankalpa varjita. There's a Sanskrit verse, and it speaks about giving up your sankalpa for kama. Giving up your determination for material desires. That's the idea. Sankalpa means, it's Prabhupada in the Srimad Bhagavatam, he has a purport where he calls it a spiritual urge. So it means you ride the wave of spiritual knowledge, and you fix your mind according to that spiritual knowledge. What is that spiritual knowledge? That spiritual knowledge is if I please Krishna, everything will be happening in my life that's supposed to happen. Everything will be perfect. So I should just try to please Krishna. Right? And if you do an activity with that consciousness, then you're acting under the spiritual urge to please Krishna. Right? That's a sankalpa. That's a bona fide sankalpa. But kama sankalpa, to enjoy material sense gratification, is exactly the problem, and that's exactly the essence of this vidha bhakti.
Would you mind if I look up the verse that I'm thinking of? Because I think
Let's see it.
Yeah, I think there's only sankalpa, not kama sankalpa, but I'll look it up.
Well, we have to understand the context of the verse.
I'll look it up on database.
Use that other phone.
Okay. We can keep answering.
So this is another point, is that say we have sankalpa being used by Krishna in a certain verse, and then Prabhupada makes sure that we understand that in this verse he's speaking about material desires, right? It doesn't mean that the word sankalpa always means material desires. Many, many times Prabhupada is making sure that the meaning is understood as it is, with the word for words also. Some people may criticize Prabhupada for this, but actually he's taking the meaning as it is. So, when Krishna is using the word sankalpa to mean material desires, Prabhupada says it means material desires. And when it means something else, Prabhupada will write something else. Just like in the Bhagavad Gita purports to 13th chapter and the translations, many impersonalists, they use this 13th chapter and they talk about how, this is me. This talk about the super soul is talking about me. And Prabhupada makes sure in the purports to say, no, it's not talking about you, it's talking about the super soul. The super soul is such and such, and you are like this and this and this. So then this is why some people, they may criticize Prabhupada, but he is actually giving the meaning as it is. And this is actually the symptom of Prabhupada described at different times that if we're not, if one preaches the absolute truth as it is, then there will be naysayers. Why? Because they're caught up in Maya, the last snare, and they want the philosophy that I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be propagated. Okay, let's put it on the screen. Are you on Vedabase or the original?
database.
Okay.
I'll go on the original though.
Let's see it now. We only have 1 minute left. Okay, let's see the word for word and the verse. Read the verse, Sanskrit. What's the text?
Text 24.
What chapter?
Chapter 6, text 24. Sanishchayena yoktavyo yogo nirvina chetasa sankalpa prabhavan kam. Oh, it says kamangs. Okay. Tyaktva sarvana sheshata manasaivindriya gramam vinamya samanantaha tata. So it does say kama.
This is awesome, though. Keep reading this. Let's read this verse.
One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith, and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of mental speculation, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind.
Amazing.
All material desires born of mental speculation.
This is exactly what he did, right? Karma Muni. This very verse. So it says Sankalpa Prabhavan. Means Prabhavan. Sankalpa Prabhavan Kamams. Right? Material desires, Sankalpa, material desires, Prabhavan, born of Kaman, sense gratification. Tyaktva, giving up. Right? So we have to give up all the material desires. What does this mean? This means that there's something that I can do. There's something that I'm supposed to do here. Right? It says here though, one should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with undeviating determination and faith. So that's the positive. And on the negative, one should abandon without exception all material desires born of false ego or mental speculation, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Okay, thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, all glories to some devotees. We can leave it. Don't end it. Don't end it. Don't end it.
While we go back and forth, alternate between karma and jnana. Like impersonalism, thinking I'm God, and then karma, I wanna enjoy this.
Well, this.
If impersonalism is the last snare of mind, why does that happen?
Well, the thing about thinking that we're God, the philosophy ultimately ends up in sense gratification. Because what are you going to do if you're God and you're in the material world? You're the big boss, you get what you want, right? I'm God. I should get what I want, right? But there's no spiritual pleasure here. So what do? I just enjoy my senses like a dog. So this is the idea, is that the natural conclusion of the Mayavadi philosophy is sense gratification. Therefore, Lord Shiva was actually asked in the Kali Yuga to propagate a philosophy by which everyone will have more sex. And it worked. And it's, we're part of the result here. This Mayavadi philosophy leads to sense gratification because there's nothing else to do, And this is why these bogus philosophies, they end up just leading to some karmic activity. So, we just have to keep hearing Prabhupada's books, and then we'll become completely free from this karma and jnana, but we have to also apply them with determination and faith. And simultaneously, as was mentioned here, we should abandon all the material desires born of mental speculation and false ego, and control and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Yeah. Charanam Bhujam Hare. We have to engage the mind in Krishna's service at every moment. Okay, thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.
Okay, Mother Radhastali, 1 second.
Can I share
Okay,
something?
Mother Radhastali, you can go ahead.
Okay. Um, I was wondering if I could just share a purport in
1
Bhagavad
second.
Gita chapter.
1
Oh,
second.
okay.
Sorry, I didn't have the mic on. You can go ahead now.
Sorry to extend the class. I wanted to just ask you what Prabhu was
I
saying.
can't
Oh,
really hear you. I don't know.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, hold on 1 second. Okay, try now.
Hare Krishna.
Uh,
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare
we, we
Krishna.
can we can hear you.
Oh, okay. I'm having it first. I wanted to share a verse.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, she left. Oh, okay.
Bhagavad Gita chapter 12, verse 20 in the purport. And this is just to also add to exactly what Magadhari Prabhu said in relation to impersonalism. So let me see. So Prabhupada was saying, as long as one does not have a chance to associate with a pure devotee, the impersonal conception may be beneficial. In the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, one works without fruitive results, meditates, and cultivates knowledge to understand spirit and matter. But this is necessary as long as one is not in the association of a pure devotee. So if one just continues to associate and hear from the pure devotees repeatedly for a long time, then sorry, out of breath. Then over time, those desires to enjoy can be purified. But we have to continuously put ourselves before the pure devotees and hear from them constantly. This is my thoughts and realizations. Thank you. Hare Krishna.